Hello, welcome to Brynwood Farm. So today I'm going to talk to you about the 5 reasons for starting to homestead in your backyard. Now this was inspired by Jamie over at Gilbrook Farm, who did a 5 mistakes new homesteaders make. So I'll link to that video just up here. Go take a look, it's really worthwhile. But for now, let me take you on my 5 top reasons to start smallholding or homesteading in your back garden. So if you're watching this video, you're probably interested in homesteading or setting up a smallholding, but you might be stuck in an urban environment just like I am. I'm in a 3-bed terrace house in the suburbs with a small garden. But I really dream of escaping to the countryside, but that's going to take a couple more years. But I would highly advise anyone, if you've got some outside space, to start homesteading now, even in a tiny little urban area, because you can start to get experience. So coming up, I've got my 5 key reasons to start homesteading in your backyard. So number 1, vegetables. You might be able to throw some seeds in and you might be lucky on the first season and they grow really well. But the longer you grow and the more seasons you grow across, you will find that actually growing veggies is really, really complex. Now I've been gardening for about 25 years and I've been growing veggies for over 10 and I'm still learning things every single day. Now the last thing you want to do is move to your homestead where you want to be self-sufficient and maybe grow some excess crops to sell, only to discover you simply haven't got the experience needed to grow the vegetables. And the thing with veggie growing is, if you muck up a season, you've got to wait then till the following year to start all over again, unless you're in the summer and you're doing quick crops. So even if you've got a tiny outside space like a balcony or a patio area, you can use pots and you can start to learn how to grow vegetables. You can grow which veggies you like, because again, there's no point growing an entire row of, say, turnips, and then you discover you don't even like them. So grow things you like, gain experience on when to sow things, how long things take to get to maturity, and when you move to your homestead, you will be ready to go. So number 2, livestock. Now if you're anything like me, you want to leave your urban retreat, rush to the countryside and go and get loads of animals like chickens and ducks and geese and maybe some milking goats and a cow, and maybe you want to rescue a couple of old horses, get some pigs to turn over the land, some sheep, llamas and alpacas as well to look after your chickens and keep away the foxes. But going all in like that is a recipe for disaster. A, it's going to cost a lot of money. B, it's going to stress you the hell out. And C, with all those animals and the relatively lacking of experience, you're going to end up with a bit of animal neglect as well, because you just won't know the animal husbandry. So I highly recommend that if you have an outside space, you start keeping a few livestock at home. So you can do chickens, I've got lots of them, you can do quail, and you could also do rabbits. They're fairly cheap and simple and easy and don't require a lot of space. Now, I've kept chickens for over 20 years, and I thought that I knew everything there was to know. But it wasn't until a couple of years ago that I started hatching and rearing and growing and then culling for the freezer, that I realised, actually, there's a lot more to learn here. So it is a big learning experience, even if you think you've already got that knowledge. So if you can get any livestock at home and start it off in your garden, it means that your transition to your eventual smallholding or homestead is a lot easier. And when it comes to things like chickens, you'll already have all those skills under your belt, you'll be ready to go, and then you can concentrate more on how to milk those goats or how to graze that cow. So my 3rd reason for starting a homestead in your backyard is start-up costs. Now, my goodness, moving to a homestead is not cheap. It's ironic that actually moving to the countryside, reducing your bills, growing a lot of your own food, and basically starting a cheaper way of life actually costs so much to start with. So you've got a lot of start-up costs. You might have paid off the mortgage and the land on the homestead, but when it comes to getting animals and getting all your infrastructure and your equipment in, it can be really, really expensive. So If you start gardening and homesteading in your backyard, you can start to get some of those tools. So with gardening, for example, you can get all your tools that you need for growing. You might have a big enough garden to have a small polytunnel in, and you can take that with you. The same goes with chickens. You can get the coops ready to take with you to the homestead. You can get your animal medicine kits ready as well. And so while you've got a stable job, you can start to build up this equipment list. Now, while it might seem a small drop in the ocean compared with the overall huge quantity of costs that you get when you go to the homestead, it could make the difference between being able to easily afford that new stock fencing or really having to scrape everything together. Jamie touched on this on her homesteading mistakes as well, that it can cost a lot of money to start your homestead. So if you can start it in your backyard and start to gather some of the equipment and supplies you'll need, you'll start to save some money. So my fourth reason for starting your homestead in your backyard is rules and regulations. I know, folks, really, really boring, but also really, really important. And I'll give you a couple of examples. Over here in the UK, there aren't huge restrictions on chicken keeping, and your local borough might get involved if you've got too much noise, or maybe if you're reported for not keeping them in good condition. But you can pretty much keep chickens wherever. But I know from my North American friends, it's a different case entirely. There are restrictions on where you can keep chickens, how many you can keep, if you can have a rooster at all. And the last thing you want to do is bring home your chickens, pay out all those costs for coops and things, only to discover you're not even allowed them. And another thing is with your selling your produce. So again, over here, I sell some vegetables and fresh eggs. Now I can't, even though they're organically fed, and the chicken's pretty much free range around the garden a lot of the time, I can't use free range or organic on my labels because they are industry coined terms, and if I use them, I could be fined. The same as I shouldn't wash my eggs, and I can't grade them by size. So you need to know all these rules and regulations, and so you don't get fined, and so you don't have a heartache later on. Now, getting into the mindset of knowing how to find these things out, and having a more business approach to your homestead is really, really important, and which is why I recommend starting that in your backyard before you move across to your farm. Because the last thing you need happening when you're on your big rural homestead with dealing with all these animals is to suddenly be hit with loads of paperwork that you don't understand, you don't know why you're getting it, and maybe you've gone out and you've bought a load of cows, and then you discover to your horror that the bylaws mean you can't keep cattle. Now that would be an absolute nightmare. So rules and regulations is really important, and you need to get to grips with it. And if you start homesteading in your backyard, that is a time when you can start to look into this paperwork and get into that mindset so that you're ready for what's to come. And so finally, my fifth reason for starting a backyard homestead is customers. Now, a lot of us want to move to our homesteads in the country and be self-sufficient, and also sell some of our surplus meats and vegetables to people. Now, if you've never done that before, then that startup and that learning experience can be really, really challenging. But starting at home, starting small, can be a really, really good way of getting going. And you can find out what your customers like, what they want, which vegetables are better at selling to them, and you can start to develop that customer base. Now, if you move to your homestead locally, you can also keep those customers on board when you move. So you've developed your business really slowly, really smallly, and just gradually grown. But even if you've moved miles and miles away and you've had to look for an entire new customer base, just having started in your backyard and gone to some farmers markets locally down there, maybe done some veg boxes, maybe done some garden gate sales, will get you in the right place to start afresh, know where you're going, know how to do it, and really kickstart your new farming business off on the right foot. So there are my 5 reasons for why you should start your backyard homestead or small holding: gardening, livestock, setup costs, rules and regulations, and customers. It's all about gaining experience so that when you do actually move to your rural homestead, you have some skills and expertise to start going right off the bat instead of having to learn it all from scratch. The other thing is it helps stave off a bit of that dream, because if you're like me and you have that dream of moving to the homestead, being stuck in a suburban environment can be really, really sort of depressing when you just want to get on with it. Now I'm really lucky that I've got 40 acres of farmland from my grandfather waiting for me, but for reasons out of my control, I am stuck in a suburban environment for another couple of years. So that's why I started Brunwood Farm, so that I can get some experience, but also so I can feel like I'm doing something to prepare myself for the future, and getting some skills and enjoying just gardening and keeping chickens. So I hope that's given you a few ideas and points to ponder. If you've got any questions, as always, please just ask them in the comments section. Give me a thumbs up if you've liked the video, and thanks for watching. Bye.